Hello, and welcome back to the Sarkastik Wanderer podcast with Jace Brandt, where we talk about the film industry during the times of the COVID-19 pandemic. Today, I have my good friend Jesse Sheppard here to talk about what is going on in the television industry. In this episode, we discuss cliffhangers created by COVID, the new workflow for studio-based shows, and the creative decisions writers have to make to acknowledge the coronavirus in their stories. And with that, let's get started. Well, hello everybody, and welcome back to Sarkastik Wanderer podcast with Jace, and I am Jace, and today I have Mr. Jesse Sheppard with me today.
Hey everyone, it's Jesse.
Hello, how's it going?
It's going pretty great.
Since you are a first-timer on this podcast, we want to introduce yourself?
Sure, why not? My name is Jesse. I create podcasts, I study writing and editing, but for the most part, I just am interested in pop culture and film and media and entertainment in general.
You're like the perfect person to come on here.
Yeah.
So today we are talking about television. Last time I talked with Jake Peekbelow. He's a mutual friend of ours. And time before that, I talked with Micah Black about movies. And we kind of touched a little bit on television. One of the points that Micah made was that people are ready for television, namely streaming services. And kind of the gist we got with that is that people are ready for streaming services. Cable has kind of been going out for a little while. And with new higher quality streaming content coming out, we think that people are kind of ready for it and kind of leaning more towards that. And so today we'll talk about that a bit more. Yeah, so Jesse, where do you want to start today? There's all sorts of things we could talk about. There's a lot of things going on right now. The death of Quibi and the rise of Peacock.
Is that finally gone?
Yeah, it's finally going to die.
Oh, thank goodness. Ugh, I kept getting ads for that on Twitter all the time.
Me too.
And it's like, I'm never going to look at this.
Yeah, or not, you didn't even try the free trial?
No. It's a cool idea, but I feel like it would be like if they got people to create for TikTok, like a specific movie or something. Like, you're getting low budget TV content packed into like 6 minutes. It's just not quality enough.
Yeah, no, it's not. But Peacock though is going up though, and so they have that going for them. But today let's talk about shows that are affected by COVID.
That sounds good to me. Do we want to just start off at the beginning?
Just to really start anywhere, let's talk about the kind of like when COVID kind of hit, what got shut down and what things kind of got changed immediately. And then we can talk about how things are coming back in a little bit.
That sounds good. Well, when COVID first struck, I know there were a few weeks where they were still able to finish filming, and you know how TV shows often write the script and they have it filmed like the week before it airs, filmed and edited and produced and made to look good on TV. So when COVID hit and when restrictions started happening, a lot of the shows just ended on cliffhangers. Mm-hmm. So some shows made it and they had maybe 6 episodes left. Other shows were at the very end of their season and only had 1 or 2 episodes left.
Oh, so like crunch time, like like what kind of shows are you like thinking about right now?
So if you're thinking about like Riverdale, that series ended with maybe 2 to 4 episodes left in the season, and basically it kind of ruins the plot of it. I mean, if they're all supposed to be seniors in that season, what's going to happen next season? Are they going to be seniors for the first 4 episodes and then it cuts to now? I don't know. And shows like Superstore and Good Girls on NBC, both of those were cut off really close to the end of the season. Superstore specifically only had 1 episode left in the season, and it was supposed to end like a long story arc they've had going. So it left us with a huge cliffhanger for 7 months or so until just this past last week. Was the first episode, so.
And so, but like knowing them, they are very on top of talking about like political issues and things that are happening very currently. Have you seen the new season premiere?
I have not.
You haven't?
But based on everything I've seen, it looks like they're doing it the way they should be doing it, and they're doing it the way they've always tackled these issues, by discussing it and keeping it in there.
And having it part of their lives. Because I saw like a Twitter banner and everyone was wearing masks.
Exactly.
And so they're very good about doing, staying relevant to what's going on in real life.
Yeah, and with a show that talks about so much political things, so many different things going on in the political world, it wouldn't make sense for them to just avoid this, especially if you don't know what the plot is. They basically all work in like a Walmart kind of store. So if they weren't wearing masks, it wouldn't make any sense.
Yeah, so whatever happens, happens and they just have to deal with it.
Yeah, and that doesn't necessarily mean it's going to be every single time that's going to be like the main plot point. It's not going to be like a huge story arc, but it will be something they deal with in their lives.
Yeah, so I say they didn't want to have a whole COVID season. That
Exactly.
gets really annoying really quickly.
Yeah, and that doesn't make as much sense for that. I feel like medical shows, all of those kind of things, especially if it's in modern day, they kind of have to discuss COVID and how that's impacting the hospital and the nurses and all of their characters.
Yeah, that just also shows you need to have a good writing team who are able to adapt well to those type of things.
Oh yeah, I'm sure there are plenty of TV shows that have had to scrap whole story arcs.
Yeah.
I know, was it WandaVision?
Falcon and Winter Soldier.
Falcon and Winter Soldier.
Yeah, one of their main arcs for the season was about a global pandemic that was sped through disease, and they're like, we have to change this because it's too close.
Yeah.
And they're like, it's not COVID. It was written before COVID, but yeah, they're like, it's too close. So
it would have hit too close to home.
Way too
It would have
close.
been bad.
So I don't know what they ended up changing because that's going to be the second Disney Plus Marvel show that we get. We get WandaVision first with Falcon and Winter Soldier. They're actually doing a lot of location-based stuff, so they've been having a lot of issues traveling with travel bans and stuff. But yeah, the whole story arc thing.
Like you were saying, there are so many different restrictions happening that just make it hard for any shows to be filming right now. So I know there are a lot of shows that were already renewed for this season that have been unrenewed almost, or some of them have actually been canceled outright. So think about Glow on Netflix. It's a show about like female wrestlers almost. How can you film this?
Yeah.
You can't have people that close to each other on set doing a bunch of different wrestling scenes. Like, it would take way too long and it would cost them way too much to film all of that.
Yeah.
And from what I've heard, that's just outright canceled at this point. So yeah, COVID has definitely interfered with how television world is going to be able to function this year.
Mm-hmm.
And I mean, there are shows like reality television, all of that has been pretty able to adapt to it. So they've taken on what the NBA did. They basically created a bubble. So shows like Big Brother and Love Island were the first shows to really be able to start filming again, because they can isolate the 15 people needed to do it.
Yeah.
And they can edit it at home.
Yeah, that makes a lot of sense. I mean, that's really what you have to do now. I mean, I know, so like with a show like The Mandalorian, anyone who knows about the special effects in that, the special effects are done while the principal photography is happening. So all the VFX is done in camera on a giant LED screen. And so instead of having to do it all in green screen and do it in post, they're able to do it in person. So you have to have everyone there, the VFX artists there, everyone, the production crew, the cast, all in one place, all in one huge, very expensive studio. And I know with like the Batman, that production keeps getting halted and delayed. First because of COVID, and then second when they started shooting on location again, Robert Pattinson got tested positive and they had to shut it down again. But now they're going to finish the film using that technology so they can isolate themselves in that studio. And if someone gets it, they can isolate them within the studio, but everyone else, like they're already there. They can keep on working. And so, but I don't know how many other shows, I mean, so that you said like Big Brother, like they can kind of stay in their own house.
Exactly.
And it's just crazy to see like how everything will be affected.
Yeah, and I think it's going to be really interesting to see in like 10 years, like, so some of the solutions they're going to have to come up with are like, well, what about Riverdale? All these people are supposed to be teenagers, etc.
They grow up.
What happens when you have to start filming, a year from now, maybe 2 years from now, depending on how all of this gets resolved? They're going to be 2 years older.
Yeah.
There's going to be a bunch of TV shows, if they were popular enough to start again when this whole thing is over, we're going to have like a cultural phenomenon where there's a bunch of TV shows from this year, from this decade, where it's like, why did all these characters grow up 2 years?
Yeah.
And I don't think we can answer that. We might just have to say as a culture that it was fine.
Yeah.
What if someone dies? What if one of the actors dies or something like that? There's so many different things that writers and producers and everyone's going to have to figure out before they start filming again. And it's going to be tough for the industry after this. And I think, especially after all of this, one thing that might be beneficial is they'll be able to think further ahead about how to plan all this kind of stuff. They'll be able to adapt better in the future if anything happens like this. And so shows that are all animation, maybe that'll be the next big focus on television for the next 3 years.
Yeah.
Because voice actors can get a good microphone and they can record it all at home and they can edit it at home and they can draw it at home.
Mm-hmm.
So it's going to be interesting to see what all happens before, or if they'll figure out some way to fix all of this before it's too late for the industry.
So like you said earlier, it seems like television is very like last minute in terms of production. It's such a tight schedule. You're basically making a bunch of short films all at once.
Yeah.
And so recently, Sean Levy, the producer on Stranger Things 4, he said that the Duffer Brothers were actually able to finish their scripts before any principal photography has been done, and they have never been able to do that before.
Oh yeah, that would be so difficult for any company to do.
Such a weird, that would be such a weird feeling.
Yeah, and I'd imagine since it's all on Netflix and it's all posted on the same day, all the episodes come out at once, I'm sure there's some lenience in between it. I'm sure they can change stuff if they need to in earlier episodes, or add a few scenes if they really need it for continuity's sake. But it makes so much more sense, at least in my perspective, for them to get it all the way thought out before they start filming. But that's not how it works.
No, that's just how it goes. That's just the art of the craft. It's just a very last-minute rush thing. Another thing that got hit, so we mainly been talking about reality TV and narrative-based television, but live talk shows like SNL and Jimmy Fallon, they got hit immediately.
Yeah.
But they're starting to have things come out. Jimmy Fallon's been doing stuff he did stuff over at home over Zoom with guest stars and stuff over the summer, but now recently in the past couple of weeks, SNL had their first in-studio episode with John Mulaney returning.
Right, yeah, it was his 4th time hosting SNL, and it was interesting, honestly. Yeah. I watched his monologue, the opening monologue of the show, of course, and some of his skits, and it wasn't terrible. It wasn't, SNL's been pretty iffy for the past few years, so it's not always going to be hilarious, but it just feels different when COVID affects all of it.
Hi, I'm John Mulaney, and I'm hosting SNL this week with The Strokes.
And when was the last time you hosted?
February 2020.
And what has happened since then?
A global pandemic that ruined everything.
John Mulaney, you cursed us.
Yeah, sorry about that.
So things like that are just, it's weird. I've seen some of Jimmy Fallon stuff with them bringing on guest stars via Zoom, and it's just kind of I'm going to sit at my computer and watch this other person sit at their computer. As a viewer, that's really weird for me.
Yeah, and I feel that's one of the hardest things to just... It would be so difficult to make it work. Yeah. And I think if anyone's doing it well right now, props to them, because it's going to be hard to do anything strictly over Zoom and make it still feel like it's in person and have that same emotional element. Mm-hmm. It's hard enough talking in a room with someone, at least for me, talking miles away and not being able to understand all of the different situational signals that your brain is trying to, that's part of communication. It's hard for you to understand how to communicate the right way without all those signals going through. Think about it. It's a bunch of comedians doing this without an audience there in person to react with it. It's going to change the way they play off their guests. Normally you'd be able to banter back and forth, or at least have some kind of reaction to gauge the reaction of the people responding to your comedy bit. But if you're just there talking to a bunch of people on Zoom calls, it's going to be harder to be a comedian for the next few years.
I'm trying to make it not feel we're affected by COVID, deal with it type of thing.
Exactly. And best case scenario, if they put all of these people in a bubble and were actually able to do that well, props to them. They could probably do an actual TV show and make it feel normal.
Yeah.
But that would be incredibly difficult to do.
Well, I think with the whole soundstage and in-studio stuff, people are coming back to that, right?
Yeah, so one of the examples we looked at was Superstore, and what a lot of TV shows like that have been doing is they take the different crew people and they put them on at different times, so people that do makeup would help the actors, and then they'd take it off, they'd clean the set. They'd have the people who rearrange the set or rearrange the lights or do props or any of that. They take them on all at separate times, so instead of it all happening at once where 40 people are doing their jobs, they're doing it all separately to make sure that they're socially distant and that they aren't going to be all close to each other because with 40 to 80 people in studio at once, if any of them have COVID,
everyone has it.
Then it would transfer so quickly. And that's why, productions like The Batman, that has to be shut down for 2 weeks so they can do that right. And so basically they just have to separate the crews, do a whole bunch of other things. They get tested all the time. And then you just have to be really strict about how they can interact with people. So it's really amazing that any shows right now, especially Superstore, it's amazing that they're actually able to create new content right now.
Well, it's like they're so blessed because they had the studio-based stuff. A lot of other things are location-based. So
I think we're just really blessed that we're able to still have content coming to us.
Yeah.
Like, it's going to be difficult for a lot of people to wait maybe another year, maybe 2 years for actual content to start building up again. Like, so many different shows right now are either canceled or they're being postponed. All these different movies, the Marvel Universe, basically.
Films keep on getting pushed like no other.
And part of that just sucks. But I mean, if we have to do this, that's what we have to do. But it's going to be hard to wait another year for some of these bigger stories and some of these bigger movies and films and television shows to come back. Yeah, it's gonna be crazy. I hope I talked about this with Micah a bit. I hope people become smart again about the way that the production works. I think we talk about a lot of different things. We kind of talk about everything we want to talk about, I think. Yeah. All right. Well, if there's nothing else, I want to thank you for coming on here and talking with me. And I think it was pretty fun. Yeah, it was awesome. This was fun. Yeah. So what podcasts are you working on right now? Where can we find you? Right now, if you're on Apple Podcasts or Spotify or Google Podcasts, if you just look up BGP Audio, you can find basically all of the stuff I'm working on. That includes Hello Hello, that's a political podcast. Immediacy, which is where I talk about film and television and entertainment. And then you'll also see some of the other stuff I'm working on, which we'll get to that at some point. Yeah. Okay. And I think Jace will be on one of the episodes of my newest podcast, The Sterling Outlet. So we'll see how that goes. Yeah, it'll be fun. Yeah. So look them all up. Got a lot of great content. And thanks again for coming on here. And have a good one. Yeah, no problem. It was really fun. Thanks.
Well, this has been a crazy past couple of weeks in Hollywood. AMC reported a 90% drop in revenue for this past quarter as people are still not returning to the theaters. This is due both to fear of COVID as well as the lack of new films being released in theaters. With that, Deadline reported the delays of the Ryan Reynolds-led action comedy Free Guy and the star-studded Death on the Nile. Neither film currently have a new release date. They also announced a sequel to A Quiet Place Part 2. However, The Hollywood Reporter claims the film to be a spin-off. While The Office star John Krasinski wrote and co-produced the 2018 original and its currently unreleased sequel, Jeff Nichols will write and direct this new addition to the franchise. While this third film has no release date at this time, A Quiet Place Part 2 is currently set to release in theaters on April 23, 2021. Next, the production of Fantastic Beasts 3 receives more complications as Warner Bros. Fires Johnny Depp over wife-beater allegations. The American Harry Potter prequel series was one of the first to halt production due to the pandemic, but the loss of its most expensive cast member has made things even more complicated, especially since the studio still has to pay Depp in full despite only filming one scene. Hannibal star Mads Mikkelsen is first in line to discuss replacing Depp in his character of Grindelwald. Variety claims the film is currently set to release on July 15, 2022. Circling back to television, the popular game show Jeopardy announced via Twitter that their longtime host Alex Trebek passed away at the age of 80. His cause of death has not been officially announced, but he previously shared that he had been diagnosed with stage 4 pancreatic cancer. His final episode hosting Jeopardy will air on Christmas Day. And last but not least, Christopher Nolan was interviewed by the Los Angeles Times to help clear up some confusion surrounding the box office run for Tenet. While the film has currently made almost $350 million, it is still $50 million away from breaking even. Nolan is worried Hollywood is drawing the wrong conclusions from these numbers, saying, quote, "Rather than looking at where the film has worked well, They're looking at where it hasn't lived up to pre-COVID expectations and will start using that as an excuse instead of getting in the game and adapting or rebuilding the film business." End quote. He and other members of the Hollywood community have joined the Society of Motion Picture and Television Engineers to offer their input on the needs of the film and television industries during the pandemic. While he represents Warner Brothers, other companies involved are Pixar, Lightstorm, Apple, and Google. Tenet will be released to home video on December 15th, just in time for Christmas. Maybe now we can understand what Kenneth Branagh was saying in that thick Russian accent now that we'll have subtitles. Whew, that was a lot. And I'm sure there'll be much more soon to come. So stay tuned to the Sarkastik Wanderer podcast with Jay Sprant for more updates. And I'm Jay Sprant, signing off. Thank you for listening. Bye.